Hello and welcome back to BUSR Spring 2025 for the F1 Championships. My name is Ardo Dragon, joined by Amir Oates, also known as AO. Now, Amir, last week we had a fantastic but chaotic race around the Canadian Grand Prix. This time, we're a bit close to home. And by closer, I mean pretty much exactly. Welcome to Silverstone. Welcome to one of the most iconic tracks in the Formula One calendar, and of course, BUSR at some point in the championship season has to come here and enjoy a race around this very historic circuit. What are we expecting today, Amir? I mean, it's going to be a fantastic one, I can tell.
Absolutely. It's a home Grand Prix for many of these BSUR drivers here on the grid. And after what we've seen last in the Canadian Grand Prix, which was one of the more memorable Grand Prix in recent memory, dive down to the third round of the championship here. What started in ACC over in Brands Hatch, which also saw quite similar exciting action here. It's just 110 miles away as we head over to Silverstone in this British landmark. The last time we raced here was about 10 months ago, which ended in quite similar controversial fashion to what happened in Canada, which saw Matty win and Geek, the only person returning onto the podium here in the championship standings at 12th. He comes here with a bit of luck into his name because he's finished that one in second. So he's hoping he can continue his podium momentum here into Silverstone.
I mean, this season so far, we talked about last week how we've got so many championship contenders. But of course, there was only one guy who was going to come out of that Canadian Grand Prix unscathed, and that was Cameron, of course, winning that. This week, according to my friends list on Steam, he is topping the timesheets in terms of Silverstone time, so he'll be looking to do that properly in the championship as opposed to just on my Steam's friends list. But we'll see if he can do it. I mean, he's had, I wouldn't say struggles, but he's had quite a good set of competition in terms of qualifying so far this season. He hasn't. Don't think he was top of the top step in terms of qualifying around Baku. Of course, he had the turn one instant in the feature race, which took him down a notch. But back in Canada, he got back the momentum, and in Silverstone, he's looking to continue it. I think he really needs to win this just to stamp his authority. But he's one of those drivers who's lost a feature race to a drop round, along with a few other guys going around the circuit today. But other people that we should be looking at, I think Ben said during an interview during the interview after becoming P2 last week in Canada, he said that Silverstone was one of the tracks he was excited for. We could be looking for him making a championship charge using this track as a bit of a launch pad to make that challenge. But we're also still looking at Joe, second place around last split. This season, not quite as much of a comfortable circuit. Of course, we had that instant at the Wall of Champions last time out in Canada, where he lost that front wing towards the end of the laps around the circuit. So we'll see if he can continue his sort of decent set of forms. I believe he was second around Baku in the feature race, so he doesn't have he's not in a bad position with the drop round, but, you know, he's another one of the drivers. If he wants to continue challenging, he has to make this a very good Silverstone Grand Prix.
Absolutely. A lot of these drivers, Cameron himself had said it's actually one of the most contested championship battles that he has to face in recent memory. So he comes into this only just 20 points behind the championship leader of Woolley. He's holding on to that lead as much as he possibly can after his double win in Baku and his fourth place in Canada. We've talked about Ben and Cameron, but last gen knew it though. He starts actually in Silverstone third in the standings, which is, given that he's had decent midfield performances and then followed by a podium here in Montreal, he comes into Silverstone with, you know, a lot of hope to potentially, you know, continue on his championship charge.
I mean, he also said in the interview that he's sort of expecting the way things are panning out to not be always on the podium, but I think he's always going to be a contender for it. I think he's always going to be maybe fourth, fifth, the odd time stepping onto that third place step. I really want to see him make a push, though, and see what he can do towards the rest of these drivers. We'll see if Silverstone's one of those tracks he can make that push for. But I think also Cameron said today in voice chat, of course, I do my usual rounds of the circuit, give it a good go as well. Cameron was actually talking about Silverstone being one of the most closely contested qualifying sessions that we'll see. Josh concurred. So that is two sort of championship contenders who sort of feel if they're going to get knocked off the top step in terms of qualifying, Silverstone could be a track that it happens on. And if that carries on into the race, my goodness, what a round of racing that we have to go in this spring championship, with still 5 more races after this one. This one, the 3rd race of the season. Ooh, it could be dramatic. I mean, when we've got multiple championship contenders, it always gets a bit spicy around Silverstone, even if on the F1 calendar it's a bit more of a mid-season stop during the European tour of the circuits. This time it is almost, I'd say, starting off the season in 3rd track, the 3rd round, as we see cars already making their way onto track beneath very British skies. I think you could describe it as very grey out. I mean, we always talk about rain being a factor, but perhaps today we might actually see rain play a part in how a race weekend pans out.
It's, as you said, very British skies, so it puts all that qualifying session up in the air, because there's a possibility it can rain early on or rain on later. So if that's the case, then a lot of drivers would probably have to go in and full out as much as they possibly can if they don't know when that rain might fall. Of course, they will do, but it looks interesting, I must say. It's Silverstone is one of the most diverse weathers that we have currently on the grid. So in the fact, if there's any chance that it'll rain throughout the Spring Championship, Silverstone is the most likely of that. And I think a lot of these drivers really need to be prepared for that.
Yeah. But if it stays dry, we could be seeing a fantastic qualifying session. If both Cameron and Josh are right, and this is going to be absolute mayhem, trying to get the best times that they can in, we could be seeing quite an adventure for everyone. Let's take a look. Who's going to be first out, going to set a time as we follow each drivers around this circuit. Heading down towards the start line. Aria will be starting a lap, so let's start here. Heading into turn 1. Going through Abbey onto Farm. Setting one of the first times out on track. Heading now towards the loop. Around towards Aintree, and then onto the Wellington Straight. First DRS section on this circuit is both ERS and DRS will be open, heading down towards section of Brooklands and Luffield. Straight down to 3rd gear, there we go. We head on to Woodcote and the Old Pit Straight. Of course, heading towards a quite famous corner in Copse. And arguably the more iconic Maggots and Beckett's copied the world over on tracks around the world. Here's Maggots for Aria, on towards Beckett's, out towards Chapel, dropping down into 6th gear, going a little bit wide there perhaps in towards Chapel, but down onto this hanger straight. We'll head down towards Stowe, the final part of this lap. Be looking out to the Vale chicane, perhaps dropping a little bit too low in the gearing, down 6th gear, up to 7th again to take this corner. First part of the Vale chicane, well taken, 2 Apex is hit, out towards Club, and down to Hamilton Straight. Aria setting a 125.8 to set us off in this qualifying session, and that'll be the benchmark for everyone else.
So Aria's always done very good midfield performances. There's Enter Epic that comes off a little bit slower. It's a really good benchmark, I must say, especially in that. But Ben, meanwhile, showing that he's a title contender with a 25.269. That's really impressive, actually. Just 2/10 faster.
Joe, here we go. Here's the parade of the title contenders coming through and saying their times. 125.1 from Joe, 125.2 from Ben. Dasher making an appearance in that Ferrari. Scuderia will be reasonably pleased with a 125.3. And Josh saying 125.5. Mad Dog not too far behind with 125.6. So half decent top 5 set of times. It's going to be about the next few as Cameron has 129.2, but I'm going to guess that was just a slightly odd lap heading onto the inters. I believe we are going to be looking at some rain, so perhaps either Cameron is doing a test lap on some inters to sort of not chuck them away, or perhaps these early drivers have got the timing right and we are looking at some rain out on track. And taking a look at the cameras both on my side of things and towards the production cam, the observer, I can't quite see any rain. I'll be interested to see what the drivers are saying at the moment.
If there is going to be a chance of rain, it's probably going to come in very soon. So could be a bit of foreshadowing there from Cameron Searle. Maybe his Inter's tire change-up might get the better of him. Who knows?
Perhaps. And no word coming in from any of the drivers yet as to if there is any rain or not. So I'm going to guess that's just Cameron getting used to controls, ensuring that he's got everything set up and ready and raring to go. Set a proper lap. As it stands, the top 5 still intact. Now Finn, watching Finn going around on outlap through section, Brooklands and Luffield, out into Woodcote and the Hanger Straights. Not Hanger Straight, Old Pit Lane Straight. There we go. I'll get the names right. Yeah, plenty of laps to do that. As qualifying still continues. A lot of drivers back in the pit lane off the same times. We still got Finn, got Quicks, who has not changed his name from last week, and ZZ yet to set a time out on track. ZZ, I believe, is restarting his game and will be returning in a moment, but it'll be Finn and Quicks on outlaps to be the current last ones to set a first lap time around Silverstone.
We'll say Silverstone is one of the more important qualifying sessions that we've had throughout the Spring Championship, because this is one which has so many corners that there's a lot of dirty air that comes around. As there's a spin from Ender Epic. I think he was going to improve on his time, but after that spin coming out of Stowe, it's going to be invalid for him.
The Quicks about to start a lap here as well, going through club, just avoiding Ender Epic, who very patiently waited off track for rejoining. There you go. Rejoined safely, of course. Here's Josh going through. Has he got an improved time? Yes, he does. 3/10 off. We'll move up into P2. Joe still sitting on top of the standings as it stands. 2 drivers that were battling out in Baku last week, having a little bit of a lack of luck when it came to the Montreal circuit. Neither of them finding the podium, and Joe trying to make a late charge, unfortunately, only finding a wall and a lost front wing. So we follow Chaotic at the start of a lap, heading through the loop and onto Aintree and onto the Wellington Straights. Chaotic has a not bad start to the season, as it were. I mean, it's very tricky to catch up with quite a few of the drivers at the top of the standing, so you just have to hang out in the midfield, do the best you can, beating all the drivers that you can when it comes down to it. Geek taking 8 seconds, a more proper time for Geek. Gets him up into P2 with a 1:25.7. But yeah, up and down this grid, we're going to see some close fights today, I reckon, for position, for as many points as they can get in terms of this championship. Of course, as usual in BUSR, the top 15 will be awarded points. So there'll only be 2 drivers that miss out, but usually at this sort of half grassroots level, you usually end up with 2 DNFs at some point. Around a circuit like Silverstone, there are quite a few points that could prove with a lot of jeopardy. Ender Epic getting a 5-place grid penalty with illegal blocking around the circuit. I see in the bottom left, it's going through Aintree. I believe it was on the loop or village where the blocking must have been happening, as we're watching Cameron currently in 15th, setting a first proper time off the inters onto the softs. Z heads through that section which Ender Epic was given a blocking penalty on, heading across Aintree and down towards the Wellington Straight. Moving into a little bit of traffic unless it all speeds up and hopefully lets him through Brooklands and onto Luffield. really catching up to the rest of these drivers out on track through Woodcote and into the old pit straight. Cameron saying a good time so far, 45 seconds in. Heading through Copse towards Magnussen Beckett. The S is part of this circuit. Through one, through second, onto Beckett here. Down into Chapel, really chasing down all these drivers, and this could be a great time to get a tow. Ben saying a 125.0. A little bit of weaving that Cameron has to take, but a few bits of slipstream might help him set a faster time. He's coming through the last few parts of the circuit through Stowe onto the Vale chicane. What time are we looking at for Cameron Searle, one of the top drivers in the championship, down through Club? What time will be set? Cameron getting a 125.6. Takes 3 seconds off his own time, but is still only P6 up against the other drivers in this championship.
Still very cold, but a good move for him. I wonder if that weaving actually cost him a bit of time on that hanger straight. It's hard to tell, but Ben, meanwhile, he sets a really good benchmark for 25.08. He actually beat Stowe by only about within a tenth, so talking about the closest of qualifying here, it's really starting to ramp up in the closing stages, but Ben really showing himself and possibly getting his first pole position this season.
I'd say with the amount of time we have left, there's possibility for 2 more laps for each of these drivers, as Joe getting into the 124.9. 124.9 will top the timing sheet, so Ben at the moment will be denied that first pole position. Dasher's also improved. Just seeing his name pop up on the time sheet, back up into P3, so that's a very good position to be in. But everyone's starting to pit, get fresh rubber, more fuel on board, and get going for the next set of times. It's James, the other Ferrari on this circuit, heading through the Vale chicane, down towards the last turn in the Club onto the Hamilton straight. What time is James setting? It will be a slight improvement, 126.0. Will, I believe, remain in P11, just behind Ender Epic in terms of the timing sheet. Now, AO, it has been a tricky qualifying for a lot of these drivers, but he's seen some magnificent times. Joe and Ben putting in 2 of them. Where do we think Cameron is going to end up? Where do we think some of these other contenders like Josh are going to end up? Are we going to see any more improvement?
I think we'll obviously have to see some improvements later on during the track. It gets a lot warmer, those tires become way more optimal. So for Searle, I think that's a possibility. We'll definitely see him improve. It's the traffic that he had down that hanger straight, I think, which cost him dearly. So he's really going to try and push his eggs into the basket that he won't have to have much traffic for this lap right now.
Has set a purple down in that first sector, so I believe Joe and Ben will be sitting at the back of the bus saying that they're in danger at the moment, as Cameron will be continuing to chase them down out towards the old pit straight, even faster than last time. I think it was about 45, just a few meters before where he was, so he's definitely shaved off a little bit more time on his previous efforts. Going through Magnussen Beckett's very quick set of turns, he's dropped down very little, very few gears as you head down onto the hanger straight. I believe it was purple for a moment. He's taken 5 tenths off his time. Will take him into the low 125s, 125.1 if this remains, or if he's going to gain even more time through Stowe and Vale, through the first part of the chicane onto the second, looking out towards Club and the Hamilton straight. Where will Cameron Searle end up with this lap? 125.089 up into P3. Joe and Ben will have the champion breathing down their necks on the grid as it stands.
You can see Cameron Searle steering coming to Vale. He was a bit reluctant. He thought he was going to get too much in, so he kind of countersteered for that, and it cost him just that a little bit of time there, which would otherwise have been a potential pole position contender. Very good for him though, still 25.08. He's still got a bit of time left in his hands in order to try and gasp for that pole position opportunity, make it his second in a row.
So depending how each of these drivers treat it, I think you stay in the pit lane a little bit longer, and then you head out for that last lap, try and get as close to 0 seconds, or it's getting very, very close, but you could get 2 laps in. depending on how well you treat your car. There's Quicks getting up into P13 and a little bit of a quicker time improvement, 2/10 off Chaotic in P12. Depending how you treat this situation, you've probably reached the edge of getting 2 laps in. So it looks like Mad Dog will be the next one to set a fast lap. I'll say all these drivers are looking at one more time and seeing if you can both stay out of traffic for that one last lap, but also have the track at peak conditions. Get down and around the circuit at the last possible second. So this could be Mad Dog's second to last lap. Actually, at this point, I reckon it is last lap, as you have to get out of the pit lane and go for it. I'd say we're probably going to have to start looking at a rush of drivers exiting the pit lane and going for their last laps around this Silverstone circuit, as Mad Dog will be looking to improve in towards this final sector through Stowe, out towards the Vale chicane. Will there be a slight improvement for Mad Dog here? Currently in P8, chasing down and repping in P7. There's not much between them there in terms of the standings. It will be an improvement, and he does jump too. Aria also caught in that. Mad Dog up into P6.
That's very vital for the championship. They're really good there from Mad Dog. He's been silently putting in really great midfield drives actually for the last 2 races, and his qualifying has honestly been really up in the P6 echelon. So the fact that he's finishing off this at P6 ahead of the people that he needs to beat, really good there for Mad Dog and for the Alfa Romeo driver.
P3 last time in the championship, and it was all about sort of just constant consistency from Mad Dog that got him there in that situation. Just snatched P3 around Japan. I remember the last few laps of that circuit. Must have been awkward timing as Cameron has retired from the session.
Oh my God.
Is that a bit of an ego retirement, or has something happened around the track for Cameron to be knocked out? Cameron, I think you're trying to get the DNF out of his system early by retiring from qualifying. As the last few, I think these drivers making their last few turns on their outlap, but Cameron will not be setting another time. This is a perfect moment for drivers like Dasher, Josh, Mad Dog. Get one more time in and see if you can take on the champion and bump him a little bit further down the order. I think Joe and Ben would be excited about that prospect. Get your opponent just a little bit further down the grid. Have to stay a little bit further back, but I'll be honest. From the drives we've seen from Cameron before, he is not going to be up against that challenge. He's going to love that. He's going to relish it. As Josh coming through Brooklands onto Luffield. Here we'll be saying the last time going around this track in Silverstone in qualifying. Down onto the old pit straight. Josh currently is one of the top drivers in the championship. Big wins around Baku. Has taken him up the leaderboard. Canada, maybe a moment to forget for him. So it wasn't the finest of races from him, not ending up on the podium. It's Josh going through the last few corners, out on towards the hangar straight here. We'll be looking towards Stowe, and of course the Vale chicane. That'll be a big moment to gain a little bit of time on Cameron. This is, as said, a little bit of hesitation from Cameron on the lap he set, out towards Vale. Josh through the final few corners, out towards Club. What time are we looking at from this championship contender? Out to the start-finish straight, takes 2/10 off. It won't be enough to beat Joe on the timesheets, and he'll end up P2 unless Ben has something to say about it. Joe just about doesn't take more time off as Dasher moves up past Cameron. Now he's 2 drivers to knock Cameron down a little bit further. Last gen Newt setting a 1:25.6. Will be in P9 unless Geek sets a faster time. I think ZZ might be a little bit out of this, but he is moving through the last few corners. Mad Dog has retired from the session as well and will be overtaken by Aria over the line. And he drops down into P7, but does beat Endrepping and Last Gen Newt, 2 drivers that he will want to be beating in terms of this mid drivers championship, the mid-tier sort of sets up for a lot of them. But at the moment, as we hit 0 seconds, so these last few drivers are not setting times. We are looking at the current pole sitter, Joe, taking pole around Silverstone, 124.917 will be the winning time in qualifying.
A lot of people have actually got it out in their favours. Joe, hoping to get his championship charge alive, really needed this pole position to do it. Woolley would needed to beat Cyril in order to hold on to his championship lead as well. And Ben pretty much done what he can try to do and just keep his championship charge alive, as they just see in the back. Absolutely great performance from Joe, though. It's his first pole position this season.
Bit of NASCAR there, NASCAR racing with the bump draft going down a hanger straight. There we go. A fantastic pole position from Joe. Just 31 hundredths. Josh behind that P1 time. Ben in third. Dasher fourth. Cameron, a champion last split, is in P5 after retirement. I think Cameron's going to be laughing at that after the race today. So having a joke around about it. This maybe it's the old wheel trick, playing tricks on him. But we'll have to hear from him possibly after. I mean, he is the type of person to look at that and think, oh, this is going to be challenging today. He's just going to go out there and enjoy himself once more. But Joe, fantastic. P1, like you said, it was required off this sort of championship charge that he needed to make it. He needed to push himself. He needed a P1 and pole position, start from the front, and perhaps run away with it. I mean, if he continues to put in lap times as he did around qualifying, I don't think we'll be surprised to see Joe just run out as a winner.
Absolutely not. But, Silverstone, a really important qualifying session. And for him, out of all the drivers, to go ahead and get pole position, which means that he has the most likelihood of winning this race potentially if all things go right for him. But I will say for Ben and for Woolley to be in P2 and P3, they're in great optimal positions for their championship charges as well. The only one that isn't at the moment is Cyril, who is, after coming up from Baku, it's not really what he wanted to start over in P5. But given that Cameron's talents, I think we could see a sort of comeback performance, shall we say, from him. He is coming off from his demons, which was the last British Grand Prix, which he retired. So he's got a lot to make with the Silverstone itself. So he's going to try and hope and see that his performances will be preferable, shall we say, because he is only 20 points away from Woolley. And by beating Woolley on track, that's probably his main goal right now. So he doesn't really need the win. He just needs to finish on the podium and beat Woolley to hold the championship lead.
Absolutely. And be looking at the race day. I mean, everyone said, well, quite a few of them said that this qualifying was going to be the closest it will be during the season. And I think they all provided the opportunity to say, yep, that theory was absolutely correct. I don't think there was much time between P1 and Joe and P5 for Cameron. I believe it was about a tenth, maybe 2/10 overall, covering that top 5, 6 of these drivers. So they really provided a tough competition for each other that Joe just ends up on top of. So we'll have to see how this race plays out. We have to watch this play out. We still looks like we're going to be under grey skies as well for this race, as long as what I'm seeing just before the race and on the formation lap is going to be what we get overall.
Yeah, I mean, that grey skies, if that continues on, it's going to be a big caveat actually coming into Silverstone. But thing with Canada was that with a lot of the carnage that happened around it, we can see safety cars. So if it does rain, there's a possibility that it can also bring out safety cars amidst all the carnage. We did see from Mad Dog and Cameron So from retirements for various reasons, if that retirement behavior carries on through to the race, well, a lot of drivers have got a lot on their hands, shall we say, and as much as it is skill, similar to in Canada, you need luck. And for Joe, Woolley, Ben, and all the drivers who are hoping to make very valuable points for their championship pursuits, luck is going to be probably the most important theme around here in Silverstone.
Well, formation lap has started. It's a mix of mediums and hards on that circuit at the moment, so no rain to start off today's play as we see the drivers head around the circuit warming up those tires. But it's interesting to see each one of these contenders have different ways of approaching this situation. I believe at the front of the pack, quite a few of the drivers having hards. We've got P2 Josh on the mediums. Not far back, Cameron is also using mediums. He's looking to just set himself up and drive through this early field and take on the hard runners with a slightly better tire. Is interesting moment on the track. Who's driven up there and decided they are P1? It's not a grid slot. I think the formation lap has been balked a little bit.
It's a killer moment. I think we're. Oh,
end plate gone. Did someone not realize the formation lap was on?
I'm not entirely sure with that, to be honest, but that's a really interesting race strategy. Cameron's still retired. Oh
Cameron's
no,
retired, and
that's big. That's big for championship pursuits.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to restart the session. Well, that's interesting.
And people wonder why we don't do Silverstone much often. Got the same thing 10 months ago. We get the same thing here. It's always what the hell.
Well, that was an interesting start. So we're gonna have to go to take two. Well, there's a lot of laughter. Who's in the other Alfa Romeo? This is Mad Dog up front. Who was in the second Alfa Romeo and just decided, you know what, today I feel like I'm P1 and move the field. That was brilliant. And on top of that, just decide, you know what, I don't vibe with this end plate and just shave it off the car. Oh, goodness. Well, that was an interesting way to start. We all sort of teed up and ready to go, ready for all the drivers to head out down towards Abbey to start off the race. But no, we're going to have to reset and go again. I would usually say at this point, what do you think it's going to do with anyone's momentum? I think everyone's might be laughing too much for it to affect anyone's momentum. Oh, that was brilliant. But while we wait, that was a brilliant moment. But I tell you what, we have a brilliant charity who we are supporting this season. Once again, it is Special Effect. Take a look at this.
Nobody likes being left out. That's why Special Effect are helping people with physical disabilities to play video games. But this isn't just about having fun. The gaming setups we create are personalised, so people can play to the very best of their abilities. And that opens the door to inclusion and independence, confidence and creativity. Help us level the playing field and create more magical gaming moments. Because it's everyone's turn to play.
A fantastic charity that we are still very proud to support at BUSR. But still no answers yet as what actually happened on the track. It was just a glitch and someone drove into a wall. Tremendous stuff. But let's try and put our serious faces on once more. We just concentrate, lock in. We've had our fun. We've had a moment of amusement. Back onto the serious deal of the championship as getting everyone in to restart this lobby and restart the race. But what can be said that we haven't said so far? Joe's in a great position. Josh is going to be, I reckon everyone's going to keep the same strategy. Joe started on hards, got Josh on mediums. Josh on the inside with the mediums, that could be an absolute rocket ship start getting into P1. And we'll have to see from there how things play out.
You know what else would be a rocket start? Leaving your grid and just removing your end plate.
Well, I think removing the end plate might mean you have to go into the pit lane, so it might not be as much of a rocket start as you think.
Weight reduction.
Weight reduction. Let's turn in on the front, though. I'd imagine that might be an issue for around Silverstone with some quite fast-paced left and rights around this circuit. So a lot of the time is not used up in terms of the high-speed corners. It is more about the low speed around the Silverstone circuit. But I would imagine if you did take off your end plate and you are struggling to get some downforce on the front wing, it might hamper your speed going into the high-speed corners. We've seen it quite a lot. I mean, Cop's fantastic for going high speed. It's either a very delicate lift or just a little bit more turn on the wheel to sort of get the power down and keep it going. In terms of that corner, you got Abbey, literally the first corner of the circuit. If it's clear, you can take that pretty much full out going into farm as well. So it's those corners that a lot of these drivers will be thinking, all right, this is not an overtaking opportunity, but it is sort of a moment that we need to get right to set up a move going into the low speed corner coming up next in terms of Village. In terms of that complex, you got Cops going to Maggots and Beckett's. You might need to hold off there, but heading into Chapel and getting the DRS down the hangar straight, that will be an important setup for overtakes as well. I think Silverstone is one of my favorite tracks on the calendar as well in terms of real life F1 and BUSR now. I think it has to be after that incredible start that we saw in that formation lap. We are still waiting for drivers to join us once more in the lobby, and then we'll get ready to go again.
Yeah, Silverstone has a lot of love in the motorsport world, and I think as we slowly approach to the start of this race over again, I think it'll come to realization why this is the gem in the BUSR F1 Spring Championship calendar, why it was selected there in the first place, and why it's been a staple for the last time we raced was 10 months ago, but still that was a great exciting race up until the difficulties. You did mention about the high speed and low speed corners, but the thing was back over in Canada there was like a front wing that missing after the safety car restarts, and even the grid starts as well. Everyone is just so close here in Silverstone, and I know we laugh and giggled about the missing of an end plate for weight reduction, but it's one of the most downforce heavy tracks in the calendar that we've have. Like maybe Singapore might come close, but because the downforce matters so much. Every time if you lose a piece of your front wing, you're instantly impacted in terms of your pace, and for that, a lot of drivers will have to be very, very cautious. Even more careful than they usually are, like say Montreal or Baku. It needs to be even more evident here in Silverstone, and it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers can just try to keep themselves clean, out of danger, out of any mistakes or mishaps whatsoever. And the start here it's going to open a lot of doors and see how that happens for people to avoid that sort of damage.
So it has been spoken. There will be no formation lap after that situation there. I think Chaotic is I've seen in the lobby is the other Alfa Romeo. So I think we found our culprit as to who decided they were P1 after qualifying. He's very determined.
He's my driver of the day.
Driver of the day. Yeah. Already decided. Thank you very much. Everyone, unfortunately, that's taken. So you can go home if you wanted driver of the day. I think that sorts out the question. That's one less question that we have to ask. Ask each other by the end of the Grand Prix. Who's the driver of the day? No, Chaotic. It's not even close. But yes, to avoid a repeat of that, it is going to be no formation lap. But everyone's starting, of course, where they were in qualifying, which would be Joe P1, Josh P2, Ben P3. That's the podium positions before we start moving back down the order. So, as we count down, I think we usually like to do this in Rocket League commentary to sort of waste a little bit of time. We'd like to predict the winner. I don't like doing it because I always feel like I I jinx the person, the classic caster curse. As it stands, with the grid how it is, AO, who do you think is winning the British Grand Prix?
Chaotic.
Chaotic, there you go. You heard it from AO. Chaotic is winning. All right, a proper serious answer this time, AO. Who's winning the British Grand Prix?
Joe. More likely. I could just see him from the pole position that he has gotten. I think he'll maybe be able to have enough momentum to potentially pull the win. Although it would be a bit of idiotic for me not to consider Searle or Ben into that winning picture, but I don't know. Like Searle has always been dominant or so, but he's also sometimes a bit of off days during his championships. And I'm kind of wondering, given that he retired early on and he is fifth in what is Silverstone, I wonder if today might be that off day for Cameron.
Well, we do have an entire Grand Prix to find out. 26 laps around this Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. And we'll see if there has been some change in strategy for the drivers. I'm not sure what the particular stipulations of a new race start dictates, whether everyone needs to remain on the same strategies that they began the first attempt on. But if they don't have to change, if they don't have to change or do need to change, be interesting to see if maybe Joe sees what everyone was planning around him, using medium tires for Josh. Maybe he switches on to the medium tires rather than the hards, starts on a little bit of a faster tire. Or whether we see if everyone stays on the same tire, I can see Josh taking the inside corner, going into Village, and moving into P1. That is with a good start and making up a little bit of the time loss from being in P2. So we'll have to see how this race start plays out between all of these drivers, as everyone is still loading in. Myself, I am going to go with Ben. I think from P3 on the grid, I reckon he makes some few early moves. I believe he did start on the hard tyres, but I reckon he's going to overtake Joe at some point and become the lead hard tyre runner, moves onto the medium, and just absolutely sends it towards the end. And that is, let's be honest, it is bar any safety cars or rain to make things interesting for the rest of this race.
So we've got two different winners. We're predicting two different winners, and none of them are Cameron Searle. So that's good. That really shows just how diverse this British Grand Prix is going to be right ahead of us. Like literally, it's even though you and I have got our calculated people who are going to win, it's anyone's.
5 red lights. All the drivers ready this time. No overtakes. And here we go. 5 red lights, and away we go on this British Grand Prix, down in towards first corner as Joe will maintain P1, down into Abbey, into Farm will stay up in P1. Ben and Dasher, Cameron immediately making the first move, up past Dasher. Dasher and Aria having a battle as well as we head out towards the first straight on this track, on the Wellington straight. Will Josh be able to use that slipstream that's already moved out? Joe has moved down into P2. Josh making the early move and moving up into P1, but we still have 26 laps of racing to go. And we do have Cameron and Aria battling position down in P5 and 6. It's a good battle in that sort of area. 4, 5, and 6 all trying to get position up the field. But up front, it is Josh. Following behind is Joe, then Ben, then Dasher, Aria, Cameron, Geek, Quicks, Mad Dog, Last Gen Mute, Chaotic, It's James, Ender Epic, ZZ, Mark Soria, also known as Baby Aggie, Finn, and Atomic Fire to round out the order.
Very interesting. So far, it's been really close, but so far I haven't seen any damage. As we now go to Arias, he's going to try and make an overtake back on Cameron Searle. Searle, who's started in 5th, gained himself up into 4th, dropped himself down to 6th, and is now back up into 5th. Geek, meanwhile, making his recovery. He's down the inside of Aria. It's going side by side, coming out of Vale, heading into Club.
Hamilton straight. Come on, we got this. We can get it in 26 laps. We can absolutely get it. And,
yep.
We're starting to...
He gets himself up into 6th, though, which is really good for him. He gets himself back up into... He's in currently 12th so far, the only one that finished in the podium. He's in a really good position now to, challenge Stroll and company up ahead. Really, really strong lap, I must say, in the opening few laps. DRS will be open in the next lap, so you're going to expect to see some DRS overtakes very soon as Andrew Epic down the inside of Chaotic makes it clean as you like, and he gets himself up into 11th as he goes on behind his teammate of Last Gen Nerd. Someone in P3 in the standings. He's all the way down in 10th, which is not really good for his championship charge.
Oh, great start from a few of these drivers. Joe's still just behind Josh, 3/10 back. Heading through Maggots and Beckett's. What a camera angle that is. Seeing all the drivers fly through down in towards Chapel and this hangar straight, following Ben. Then Chaotic down the straight. Chaotic looking to line up and move, and it still just about loses it to James. Going down to the first straight. ZZ overtaking Last Gen New. Last Gen New at not having a great start to this British Grand Prix, losing quite a few places as Josh setting another fastest lap around this Silverstone circuit. But Cameron immediately hitting back with one of his own. DRS enabled. Here we go. Here's the drama about to get started for this. There is not many 1 second plus gaps. It is only Ender Epic outside of 1 second to Quicks as we head to the first DRS section. Joe, opening DRS, will be starting to chase down Josh, heading out towards Brooklands. As Josh holds on to it. Joe fended off, at least for the moment. Through Lovefields we go, into Woodcote and the old pit lane. Dasher will continue to chase after Cameron here, losing the position a few laps, last lap. And lap 3, it is going to be him trying to get back into that position. Cameron has not made as much of an impact yet, has moved up 1 spot and is currently 2/10 behind Ben, heading through Maggots and Beckett's. Down towards Chapel and into our second DRS zone. Ben will be looking to defend from Cameron. Cameron will not be waiting. Heads down the inside, straight through Stowe and up into P3 as Joe and Josh will be looking behind them. The mirrors full of that Red Bull of Cameron. Is through this Vale chicane out towards Club and down the Hamilton straight. Cameron up into P3 and continuing that charge. And Joe is next.
He is a man on a mission. I've never seen Cameron this locked in since Canada, I believe. So it's really interesting for Cameron to get himself up into 3rd on that podium contention, though, all over the back of Joe. He's going to use that DRS, hopefully to his advantage now. And Wooly, I think, he's probably got Joe and Searle on the back. Might lose 2 positions here. We shall see, coming through the first sector, down through the Wellington Straight, over through Brooklands, and then slowly approaching through Luffield. Willie's still held on to his lead, but he got the hangar straight with the second DRS. That's probably where things might go wrong.
I think a lot of patience being shown by these top drivers. They know opportunities will come. They know that you've still got plenty of time in this race, so making a dart now, making a risky move is not going to work out for them too well. So we're now heading through Maggots and Beckett's once more, the 4th time that these drivers will be going through this section onto Chapel. And here's where the move might be lined up for Cameron. Joe is in his sights, just 2/10 back. Cameron will look to go on the inside, but no, threatens through Stowe, but doesn't make the move just yet. But like I said, this is a long race. All of these drivers don't make a move now, just wait for the right moment to make it. So we head down to Hamilton Straight for the 4th time onto the 5th lap as Cameron is lining that move up on the Hamilton Straight. The 7-time world champion got this straight named after him, and Joe and Cameron will be fighting over it, the 2 title contenders. And I think Cameron sent a little bit wide through those corners, and Ben will move back up into position. That is a good moment for Joe, sort of fending off the charge from Cameron, but it won't be a great moment for him as he realizes the time difference has gone up for him against Josh. Needs to open up DRS. Bit of DRS. Catch right back up. Does so. 6/10 gap. That has dropped down. Managed to gain a 10th on P1. Oh, good moment for Joe. Well defended. Pushes Searle out. Make sure he doesn't get through. Meanwhile, Ben will appreciate a little bit of time to get through and past Cameron.
Cameron was a bit too eager on the throttle coming out of the outer of Abbey with that overtake on Joe. And it's that overcorrection that he's had a bit. He managed to keep that car onto track now, but unfortunately he's lost that third position to Ben. However, it's still not lost yet for Stroll. He still manages to stay behind him though, and with the DRS now, he's going to reclaim what he made the mistake earlier on and makes the overtake through on Ben, gets himself up into P3, and now it's a similar position between him and Joe. Once again, he's going to go for a second round.
Let's see if he can... Will he either go for the move or just wait once more as we head down the Hamilton straight? It looks like he's a little bit too far to make any sort of darting move across anyone. As we move through the first few corners of this lap, down into Village and on towards the loop. Josh still leading from Joe. From Cameron, who's moved up 2 positions. Ben has lost 1 overall, but is still in touch with Cameron. The first 1 second plus gap down in P6. Geek 1.4 seconds away from Dasher in P5. So it is this top 5 that are running away with it just a little bit from the rest of the drivers and starting to build a gap between everyone else. But if they keep continuing to fight, we might see a little bit more drama from those lower down the order. Joe closing down that gap, only a 10th between himself and Josh. We'll be looking to line up a move as we head towards Maggots and Beckett's. Through Cops we go. Joe does not allow Cameron past through the weaving corners here. Will Cameron be looking to line up the move this time? Joe is slowing him up. He needs to get him out the way. As we head towards the hangar straight, the DRS open for both Joe and Cameron. Joe looking to make a move on the outside. Doesn't quite get it on Josh, but neither can Cameron make the move down the inside. As they head towards the Vale chicane, there will be no overtakes here. They're just patient, going through these slow speed corners and heading towards the Hamilton straight, the start-finish. Once more, Josh out towards the straight and out towards turn 1, aka Abbey, on towards Farm. No overtakes being made. I think Cameron might have learned a little bit of a lesson from that attempted overtake against Joe a few laps ago that dropped him down only 1 position from Ben. And just giving him a lesson to be a little bit more patient against these drivers. You can't just overtake everyone willy-nilly. Maybe with the help of DRS and ERS, he could make a move here. Not quite yet, but still has closed the gap down and is right on the gearbox of Joe in P2.
Would say from Wooly though, great defensive driving from him, fending off from Joe and Cameron as well behind. He's had to defend off 2 fighting drivers. He's really trying to cling onto that championship lead as much as he possibly can, and he's putting his talents on great display here. Really good there from the AlphaTauri driver.
And as that fighting continues, I think it's been reasonably smart from all 3 of the top 3. They're not going for moves. They're going to cost them serious amount of time. So Ben is starting to lose a little bit of touch with them. I mean, these straights coming in helpful as Cameron looks to head down the inside round Stowe and overtakes 2 in 1 corner. No, a little bit slow heading around Stowe. We'll head towards the Vale chicane. Josh looking to keep it on the inside. Cameron around the outside, can't get into P1, but he has overtaken Joe in that complex of corners. Joe can't keep in touch, but will still be on the gearbox heading down to Hamilton straight, down towards Abbey. Josh unfazed by the battle going on behind, but he's still only a 10th lead over Cameron Searle, and through all that battle, Ben has not gained a single 10th on the battling in front. Cameron into P2 after that battle, and now is 4 tenths behind Josh, and we're looking to chase him down over the next few laps.
Nearly made it a 3, overtook 2 cars actually to get into P1, but Willie just about fending off, and that was really good defending from Josh once again. Really fending off from Cameron as he's going to have that DRS straight. Look at this. It's all punded up, all the cars together. It's going to probably be a 5-car battle for the lead already. As you said before, it's this DRS train here that everyone is taking their time and playing their cards right here as they go through Cops.
And towards Maggots and Beckett's again, these left and rights weaving through them, and they are just staying with each other. It's fantastic driving, fantastic racing from all of them. DRS opens. Cameron looking to move on the inside, heading towards Stowe. Does make the move. That'll be the easiest one he's had to make so far. And we'll move up into P1. Cameron, the one that neither of us wanted to tip for victory. Both of us wanting a little bit more interest. But Cameron, it has been tricky for him moving down to P4. That little battle with Joe. But finally gets up into P1 and is starting to build a little bit of a gap with those hard tyres, probably starting to rub her in and getting level with the mediums.
Not an easy feat for Cameron from starting in P5 all the way up into first place, even dropping down in 6th at one point. The fact he's managed to lead the race in just lap 9 is really a testament of his talents there. But now it's an entirely different kind of game that he has to play along with these leaders, and that is strategy. How much has the hard tires that he's worn off having to overtake and go above the racing line? That is a question up for debate, though, I must say, Alistair.
Meanwhile, there's still close battles going down, up and down the order. ZZ looking to pass Chaotic, heading into Brooklands, and does so. Fantastic overtake. Chaotic just pushed himself a little bit too wide in that corner. And ZZ ends up moving up in front. Good overtake. Now you have to keep it. We are starting to see, of course, these gaps, as I said, starting to build up. Geek has just broken into the DRS of Joe, who slipped down the order a little bit. After the fights up front, Dasher up into P4 now, Ben in P3, and Josh and Cameron are already a second apart as Cameron's starting to build up the lead at the top of the order. 1.2 seconds in front of Ben as Chaotic and ZZ continuing to fight for P12 and P13. This is what the positions in the lower order mean for the championship. There are a few points on offer for both these guys. If they end up in either of these positions, they've lost touch a little bit to It's James. A 7-second gap between himself and ZZ in this lap, but they're still going to fight for every point that they can get in this championship. But I gotta say, what has happened to last gen new? It must have been possible damage in the first lap. I mean, 6 lap old tyres in comparison to the 9, so something must have happened to drop down the order. But not a fantastic race around Silverstone for him during this season, as we have lap 10 starting very soon as Cameron heading through Stowe down towards Maggots and Beckett, Copsons, I should say, Maggots and Beckett's. Finn getting a 3-second time penalty. Multiple warnings. You haven't seen much of track limits around this track as much as we did around Canada. A little bit better in terms of the penalties and the racing is much clearer on a circuity track, as just as I say it. Baby Yagi joining in the party. Another 3-second time penalty handed to one of these drivers, but the gap's starting to build up. Not sure how much it matters for Baby Yagi at the moment, unless that really builds up into a larger penalty as Joe's continuing to drop down the order. Now, because of a pit, we could be coming in a little bit early than the rest of these hard runners, trying to get an undercut going around the Silverstone track.
First person on the scheduled pit stop, so probably would have imagined to have a better run on the hards than he actually did. The fact that he's coming in pitting actually earlier than some of these medium runners as well is a little bit worrying, as it's a front wing change. That's probably why he's dropped down so many positions. That explains why he was all the way down in 6th, and that's going to be really crucial for Joe and his championship charge. A pole may not be enough for him, but we'll see if he'll be able to salvage it any further. Last year, also having the front wing damage also puts his championship charges on a halt as well, down in 16th. It just shows you just how impactful, whenever you have damage on that front wing, just how punishing that really is in Silverstone.
Clearly not made up for in terms of the weight reduction. Definitely not worth it. We've definitely confirmed that myth now. As in terms of the top order fights, Josh and Ben fighting for P2 and 3 at the moment. Down towards the hangar straight. Overtake from Ben down to Stowe. And Josh will be left behind, at least for the moment. These two very equally matched in terms of this Grand Prix. Down into the Vale chicane. Then dropping down into the 3rd gear. We're looking out to pull a little bit of a gap going onto the Hamilton straight after Club. But Josh will remain close, heading towards Abbey. No move to make here. Just stay behind. Stay close. You have a DRS straight coming up to use after these next few corners. Around Village, around the loop, onto Aintree, and now it is your time. Open up DRS, open up ERS, get into the slipstream and overtake your rival. Here comes Josh, looking to pass Ben here, but not enough straight to use. As we head into Brooklands and Luffield, Josh will still remain behind Ben in this battle. There's another few pit stops coming through. Ender Epic and Nick James making moves onto the hard tyres that will last to the end of the race. Unless we see a safety car which may change tactics and strategy a little bit. Oh,
it's always
Josh?
open on the cards. Sorry?
A bit of an excursion from Josh. Going through cops. Out off the track. That most likely is a warning at least, but at least gets away from the penalty for being off track and does have a run going through around the outside, going into Stowe, makes the move back, and they have traded positions.
Good move there from him on the outside of Stowe for Josh. He's trying his best to catch up to Cameron, but it's not really looking much favourable for him, as actually Ben has gone into the pits. It's a scheduled pit stop, so we're going to see what time he'll come out with. Lap 13 out 26 halfway through.
An incredibly long pit lane at Silverstone. So we'll have to see what these drivers do, what the pit delta is. Ben clearly feels that the hards are starting to run out and needs to move on to the slightly faster tyres and the mediums. Whereas Cameron's still perfectly happy running on these hard tyres on 12 laps. Josh on the mediums for 12 laps as well. All the drivers up front. Down towards ZZ, Finn, Atomic Fire, all have not made pit stops yet. ZZ will be the next one in that Aston Martin. Of course, one of the Silverstone complex teams, very, very close by the Aston Martin setup to this Silverstone track. It is a proper home Grand Prix for any Aston Martin that drives around here, but fortunately for Joe and ZZ, they're not in the best of positions around this circuit. Still pit stops to make, so we'll have to see where Joe ends up after all of them are made. But it hasn't been the greatest of Grand Prix after that front wing damage for Joe down the order as fights continue. Mad Dog looking to chase down P5. Aria in front, only a 3/10 difference. And it's starting to form a little bit of another three-car chain here. Geek to Aria to Mad Dog from P4 down to 6. Of course, up the fields, we've got Cameron who's pulled out a near 3-second gap between himself and Josh, and Dasher is behind another 4 seconds. So already we are seeing the effect of Cameron getting clean air and using that battery to good effect to get a lead over his rivals.
Just looking at that gap, seeing if that overcut might be probably the best kind of strategy call in comparison to the undercut, because of that dirty air that whenever you come out of that pit straight, there's going to be a lot of traffic that you have to navigate around through these corners, and you're effectively losing time in comparison to just pushing and having that clean track ahead of you. That is what Cyril is trying to do, and I think if that will be the case, he's probably more or less has got this race lead sealed out of the pit window.
We'll have to see, though. Ben is slowly making moves up this order. Moving past Baby Yagi, will be chasing down Chaotic now, not too far behind. But from there, it is a 15-second gap for Chaotic to Quicks. There is a caution on track, at least for a moment. It just seems to be momentary yellow flag for these drivers.
He spun and he had a collision with Ender Epic. I wonder if that's another damage to his front wing as well. That was coming out of Luffield. So we're going to have to look and see. Geek and Dasher, they're going to be the next ones heading down into the pits as well. This is going to be interesting. They were in the midst of a battle for themselves. It's going to be the fastest pit stops winning. We'll see which of the pit crews will come out as well. Mad Dog also into the pits as well.
So Geek changing onto the hard tyres. Dasher onto mediums. Mad Dog also onto mediums. We'll move out on track. Ben setting a fastest lap, 1:28 26.3. Moves up to P5. And it is still quite a gap between himself and Cameron. But at the moment, I think this early move from Ben is starting to pay off and starting to catch up with the rest of this order. It is still quite a difference between himself and Quicks, who is currently in P4. Let's see, if we add this up, about 12 seconds, 24, about 27 seconds thereabouts, 28 between himself and Cameron at the moment. What is the pit delta around Silverstone? It's usually about 30 seconds in terms of the pit stop, because it's an extremely long pit lane. Then you have to get the change at the garage. Then you have to move out onto the other side of an incredibly long pit lane. So, can't remember exact, but I think it is very close to the 30-second pit stop. And at the moment, Ben is chasing down that delta quite nicely against Cameron.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that 30-second delta is going to see if there's any from area. Also going to head down into the pits as well. See exactly where he'll come out of. Lap 16 out of 26, only about 10 laps or so to go. Sir and Willie are the only ones that of the leaders that have yet to pit, actually. Ben, I think, will continue up his charge, along with Quetzalcoatl in third as well. He's also another one that has yet to pit. He's also putting his chips into the uppercut as well.
Cameron still yet to pit. And it's just himself, Josh, and Quicks who have not pitted so far. We do have Finn down the order and Atomic Fire as well, but in terms of these top teams and top drivers, the top three are still yet to make their stops in the race. With 10 laps remaining, I think the medium tyres are going to be a fantastic option for Cameron when he does make the stoppers. Mad Dog overtaking Geek for P7. Finn making his first pit stop, changing onto medium tyres. Atomic Fire picking up a 3-second time penalty as well. Up and down the order, we're getting a little bit of action everywhere we look. But it is going to be very important to see, very interesting to see when Cameron decides to make this move and dart towards the pit lane. So
I think it's gone off track, actually. He got squeezed out by BB Yagi. Coming out of that, he's going to drop a lot of positions, having to cut through Maggots and Beckett's. It's a bit unfortunate there for Mad Dog.
Quite a fight going down lower order. Joe fending a position from Ender Epic, both of them going tight to tyres. They both managed to survive through the corners and that section. Joe on the outside, heading into Brooklands. Not Brooklands. I misidentified the corners. There we go. Out onto the club, through Vale. Joe managed to keep position over Ender Epic. Should perhaps look at the track map from time to time to make sure I'm getting it right. There's stands everywhere. It's confusing.
Yes, of course. BB Yagi serves himself a 5-second time penalty for speeding the pit lane. That's really good for him. Amid speeding all that traffic, it's probably cost a lot of drivers actually really valuable time having coming out from that pit window. As it's James is struggling just a little bit on those tires. Ender Epic and Joe having a go once again as he goes through the inside of Joe through Brooklands, round through Luffield. Holds on from Joe. As it goes for the National Straight, it's going to be side-by-side. 2 side-by-side battles actually as they head through Stowe. Ender Epic comes off just ahead now. Using the slipstream, we'll see. Going through the second sector, through Cup they go. Out of it, and Maggots and Beckett's will await for them both. As we see just how much they can try to kick behind the other car. Away through Chapel they go. And then out to the Hangar Straight. We'll see how all this pans out in the end as they go through the second DRS straight as Aria goes down for the inside of Joe, out through Stowe, and he actually makes it work. And there's Willie. He's going to be the first one to come into the pits.
Cameron, I believe, just coming out of the pit lane. Ben will be just in front of Cameron. A 2-second gap. That is an almighty stint from Ben on the tyres. We'll be about 4 seconds behind Quicks and be looking to catch up, maybe get a little bit of DRS before Quicks finally makes a move towards the pit lane. But that is a 3-second cushion that might be eaten up by the tyres, though. That is the only thing stopping Ben from this victory, is using those tyres that he has. He has been on them for a little while. Cameron in fresh rubber will be chasing down. Dash has also made a fantastic move up the order into P4. When does Quicks make the move? I think Quicks has to do that this lap. It is quickly showing that the undercut has been very important, and you need to minimize it as quickly as you can, as Ben is already chasing down. It has dropped to a 2.3 second gap down the order. Aria, who is in front of Joe, looking to chase down Ender Epic as they head down through Maggots and Beckett's. No move will come here as they move on to Chapel. Line up the move now as Ender Epic off track will move back on, but it will be Aria who needs to get through here. Ender Epic will be left behind. Down the hangar straight onto Stowe. Aria putting enough pressure on Ender Epic to get through, make the pass, and up into P7. A good battle between those two as Searle will move up the order as Quicks does make that pit stop. Cameron has already closed down that gap to 1.8 seconds. The older tyres for Ben. He is going to be struggling on them now. Already in the sights of Cameron just up front as they head through Aintree out onto the Wellington Straight, looking to close things down here and close the gap and get things close as we head towards the last 6 laps of this race. Cameron will close in. There we go. The DRS 1 second has been closed down. The next straight is going to be important for this race and how things continue. Ben still up front with a 6/10 lead. Dasher 5 seconds back. It is going to be a race between these two. See if Ben can defend hard enough around this Silverstone circuit, and if Cameron can make the pass as they head towards Maggots and Beckett's after going through Cops. Cameron chasing down 3/10 as they head towards the hangar straight. This could be the move that wins the race for Cameron. Going down the inside of Chapel will have the run on Ben. Makes the move. The hangar straight, the home of the overtake around the Silverstone circuit as they move into Stowe. Cameron has fully solidified that move on Ben.
Super clean move, 5 laps, fresher tires, and it's all in evidence and here for display here at Silverstone. Searle really has got it done, and he completes the fastest lap as well, 26.226. That is barnstormingly fast here as the home crowd for him awaits for him. Just Woolley goes around the inside, got a caution actually coming out of it almost, but Woolley gets himself up into 3rd, tries to hold on to anything that he can, and a podium place is exactly what he needs to try and keep himself in that title picture. Good there from Woolley.
Dash had just been left behind there, and that was the next fight we're going to be watching a little bit further down the order. We still have that battle between Ender Epic Joe and Mad Dog going on. We still have Dashra in touching distance of Woolley as well. Up and down the order, we do have fights going on, and it will be close towards the end as the move almost made by Mad Dog around Joe, trying to find a way around the inside. Joe will continue to try and chase down Ender Epic despite the pressure being put on from Mad Dog as they have heading towards the Wellington Straight. Mad Dog and Joe heading towards through Cops, through Maggots and Beckett's. I was looking at the other Aston Martin on tracks, easy back fighting with Chaotic as well. The 2 Aston Martins and the Alfa Romeos battling on track at the moment. Joe looking to battle with a McLaren though as he starts chasing down Ender Epic, going down the straight, has Slipstream, will just be in touching distance of the gearbox of Ender Epic, but decides to hold back just for a moment. Mad Dog, I think, has slipped back a little bit in terms of this battle, but down to a 7/10 gap. But Joe still looking to move up into P7 as they head towards Club and down the Hamilton Straight. Will the move be made here? No. I think it's a little bit too far. Going into Abbey, going into Farm. I think we'll be looking at the Wellington Straight once more for these cars and see if Joe will make the move up into P7.
A man that was in race-winning contention here for the British Grand Prix, having that front wing mistake, unfortunately took it away from him. He's trying to do anything he possibly can to make up those remaining positions. Tries to use for the Wellington Straight with the DRS to no avail. He's going to try and stay behind Ender as much as he possibly can. He's eyeing for the hangar straight for that overtake.
My goodness, just looking up front, Cameron's pulled out a 3.6 second gap over Ben. Just incredible speed over the last few laps. to think, just after the pit stop, Ben was 3 seconds behind, and now he's made up 7 seconds to not only overtake, but pull out a lead. As well, Ben has had some quite good laps. He's managed to keep that lead over Josh to about 4 seconds. And Josh as well. I think the top 3 are having good races, but it's hard to say Cameron is easily having the best race out there.
Is he mad at us because we didn't pick him to win the race?
He's absolutely demolishing both of our picks so far when it comes to this. As Joe, again, onto the back of Ender Epic, just can't stay close enough at the right moments to make this move. As we head down towards Abbey and out towards Village now, still hunting for that move. Needs to stay close, heading in towards the loop and Aintree. Use this next straight. You'll have DRS. You should have ERS. You'll have Slipstream. You have every single advantage over Ender Epic now. You just need to make the move at the right time. But to be honest, this Wellington straight is just about not long enough to make the perfect overtake heading into Stowe. So you do just need to wait for this old pit lane start after Woodcote to be able to make the move. Then you need to wait after Maggots and Beckett's and Cops. It's a long wait between the DRS straights if you aren't making sort of innovative moves past your opponents here. And so many turns it can go wrong, and so many turns you can just lose time against your opponents as he does so. Joe dropping back by 0.6 now, and will need to make it up on this straight with DRS open. But again, it is not quite going to be enough heading into Stowe, and Ender Epic manages to go another lap, keeping Joe behind in P8.
So Joe will have to wait again as he goes through Vale and Club up to the Hamilton Street, and then wait for Abbey, and then Farm, and then the Loop, and then Antry, and then he'll have the Wellington Street, and then you have to wait through Brooklands and Luffield, and then the old Pit Street, and then wait. Alistair's favourite F1 track, ladies and gentlemen.
It's amazing. I love Silverstone. It is very fun to drive. I think that one might make it. That might be the bigger reason it is one of my favorite tracks on the calendar. It is just amazing fun. High speed into low speed. There are not really that many, you would say, medium pace corners. As down the field, Quick's trying to get past It's James, or at least defend from him. He does keep that position, heading on to the Wellington Straight. And It's James not quite there to make a move into Stowe. And Quicks will keep that position into Luffield, into Woodcote, and down the old Pit Straight. ZZ as well, chasing down Chaotic. Last Gen New in a battle with Baby Yagi. There's just a few battles going on up and down this order. Will Last Gen New be able to make a move? Yes, just about onto Stowe and heading onto Luffield. Last Gen Newt overtaking Baby Yagi into P14.
Really needed that for his more points they could possibly do, but the good thing for Baby Yagi is having been 40 seconds ahead of Finn, he'll hopefully be able to retain that last point scoring position. Must say though, Alistair, no retirements.
No retirements just yet. Plenty of penalties going around, but you really need those to add up if you really want to get a DNF and retire from the race. Once again, Joe lining up a move between himself and Ender Epic, down to a 3/10 gap. This will be much closer, as long as he stays on the gearbox, heading it down through the loop and to Aintree. A little bit of a traffic that they need to overcome coming up next, as it will be a Mercedes just in front of these battling duo. Joe will be looking to line up a move, is really, really close to the gearbox, but still, just a little bit too fast heading into Brooklands if you really want to make a move down the inside of your opponents. Another back marker, just a little bit, getting in the way just a little bit, but has moved toward the inside. Let the drivers through. Joe still, once more, putting so much pressure on Ender Epic. I think Ender Epic has cracked a few times. We saw earlier against Aria, he just went off heading into Chapel, and it looks like Joe's trying to match that sort of vibe. Put pressure on your opponent and let them make the mistake. He has gone a little bit wide into Chapel, but opens DRS and be chasing him down the hangar straight, waiting for the time to be right. It isn't going to be that moment. He's heading in towards Stowe and down in towards the Vale chicane. Joe still unable to make a move, despite being on the gearbox of his opponent.
He'll need to wait for more, but how much waiting can he do, though? He's only got 2 laps left. It's the bigger picture for the championship for Joe is on the line, because he's already going to use his drop round for Canada, so he's going to need to hope for a miracle now to able to attack from Ender Epic. But I must say, having Ender crumbled earlier on from defending from the previous, he's done really well from defending from a man of high caliber talent like Joe, and it's a really testament of his talents as well.
It has been an education on good defense from Ender Epic. Last year, making a move on ZZ, so one Papaya is still defeating another Aston Martin on this circuit, and it looks like it will be the Papaya over the racing green of the Aston Martins again as they head through Copse down toward Maggots and Beckett's again. This is not really an overtaking zone. We always see a dangerous moment when it's too wide going through these flowing corners down towards in towards Beckett's and into Chapel here. The move needs to be made here. You have plenty of room down towards Stowe. Will Joe be close enough to move onto the inside? No, still following just behind, but once more, it's still waiting maybe a little bit too long as Cameron is on the last lap. It is a 9-second lead over his opponents and is cruising home towards victory around the British Grand Prix. He is going to be moving down this section of track, down the Wellington Straight. He has the fastest lap, and it looks like he's heading towards a race win. P5 to the victory, no problem at all for Cameron. Still fighting Joe, but that looks like it's one of the only positions in contention at the moment. Up front, it has not been much of a fight. Cameron managed to get past early on as there we go. Joe is side by side. Will he make the move on Ender Epic? He has gotten past in Love Fields and does make the move stick. Far from elementary for him, but
now coming for the Nationals, and it's going to be side by side heading through Copse now. I think he's got the outside line. Ender Epic will take it from him.
Joe will continue to fight, but no one has fought just as much as Cameron from P5 through Club, the Hamilton Straights. The champion wins again. The Great British Grand Prix goes the way of the Red Bull, goes the way of Cameron. There's the winning moment, but honestly, we have to watch this Joe and Ender Epic fight. Josh Woolley and Ben coming over the line. That's the podium sorted. It is all about what's going on behind in P7 and P8 as they still continue to fight through the last corners. Does Joe have it? Down towards the line, through Club, closes out on Ender Epic and takes the win over in that battle. A little bit of the argy-bargy for Joe, manages to get past in P6. The penalty for Aria moves him down to P8, Mad Dog P9. And as we still sort out the final few positions, it is going to be Cameron on top of the timing sheets once again, on top of the leaderboards. P1 for Cameron, and Red Bull, the champion, remains on top.
We've got Yeezy actually spinning out, coming through the final corner of through Vale. I think, is he celebrating that Joe overtook? I don't know. Honestly, that was can we honestly agree that this might have been Cameron Stroll's best BUSR F1 performance? From P5 to P1, it's such a heavy title contender that he's had, even in his admission on how much it's gotten tighter. He has proven on occasion why he is number one here in the Spring Championship, why he is the defending champion time and time again, why he's always a mainstay whenever it comes to title pictures. Absolutely great there from Cameron. He'll be absolutely proud to win in his home Grand Prix.
Absolutely massive for the championship. Absolutely massive performance. I think last week around Canada, we also said it was such a dominant performance from Cameron around there. But I have to say, I agree. Today was on an absolute different level. from Cameron once again. He had 5 positions to make up. He had to make it up against Ben, and he made up the difference in 1 lap. He made up 3 seconds around 1 lap, got the fastest, and just continued to run. It was an outstanding performance. And once again, Cameron Searle wins the BUSR race and adds to his tally. Moving from, I believe, the McLaren last season, he's moved to Red Bull, and everything just stays the same.
Absolutely. I think after this win over in the British Grand Prix, he overtakes Josh for the championship lead now. And that's really big for him. Now he comes in here after round 3 as the championship leader. And for everyone else now, it's just a very big chasing game. For Ben, he's going to have to chase. For Woolley, he's going to have to chase. And for Joe especially, even though he had the front wing damage, he managed to muster up a very respectable P6. And he too is also going to have to chase as well.
Yeah, absolutely vital positions made up for Joe at the end, but he hasn't quite been on the same form as he was in last split, coming first, second. Every single time he was on the podium. This time, that consistency has slightly gone awry, but it has to be said, I think in this split, we are seeing more competition, more drivers finding that confidence. I mean, Ender Epic, he was a rookie in the last split. He was sort of trying to find his place on the circuit. This time, he's so much more confident. And you saw that in the fight against Joe. Really good defense, really good racing. And just at the end, going through Vale, going through the club section and on towards the Hamilton Straight, Joe just about making the overtake. It was a fantastic battle from those two. But also needs to be said, I think Ben was a decent pick for the win today as well. I think he might have pitted a little bit too early, but part of the genius of his strategy and getting into the position that he did, getting into P2, was that early pit stop. It was that undercut that helped him out, and he cut through the field, got himself into a half-decent position. But I think maybe a few laps too early to make that undercut properly against all the other drivers on track. I think he was one of the first drivers to make a move, especially in the top order of things. And it's just, in the end, you had the tyre advantage for Cameron. And as soon as that move was made, it was sort of already written on the trophy that Cameron was going to take away P1.
Yeah, for Ben, he doesn't have a lot to be disappointed about. It's another great P2, and it's another really. He was outside Cameron one of the best chances to ever get P1. Similar to it was in Canada, he lost it because of a 4th safety car period. I think he just about lost it because he pitted just a lap or 2 way too early in comparison to Cameron. But on the other hand, the overcut is just really, really optimal, because as soon as you come out, yes, you're behind the other car, but tire degradation really matters the most. And in the undercut, it just degrades way too much that by the time you have to defend from a person that overcuts, you're effectively on worse tires, and it's really, really hard in order to defend it. And the fact that Ben managed to fend off Cameron as much as he did, even though it was 5 laps older mediums that he was in compared to Cameron, he's got nothing really to be ashamed of. It's a really good position that he's in, and his championship position will also speak for itself as well.
Also, fair enough at the end, Josh was very close behind Ben towards the end. I think the tyre degradation really getting onto Ben's back, but he still managed to fend off Josh. He still managed to keep that P2 position despite Josh just about getting into DRS. I think that was part of it. I don't think Josh had an opportunity in the DRS zone to actually line up an overtake on his opponent. So good work from Ben. Low on the tyre degradation, keeping them safe, and getting around the circuit and keeping that P2.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely incredible podium. And I think the great thing about this was for the first 9 or 10 laps, we've had really, really exciting racing, I think. And it's the first time that we've seen the top 5 having a long DRS train for as long of a period as we had. A lot of positions were on the cards, and all these drivers here put on an absolute clinic of what was, amidst all the controversy that we've had in Canada and from the previous 10 months we had last year in Silverstone. And ironically, the first ever start that we've had, a really great more or less accident-free race that we've had so far. And honestly, I'm really looking forward, excited to see the remaining races now because of this, because it now puts Cameron now in a familiar position in the lead. It's just a matter of himself seeing how he's able to defend from those chasers now as we head down through next week over in Austin, I believe.
But let's take a moment to start talking to our podium. Let's start off with P3. Josh joining us in a sec, the AlphaTauri driver. Josh, it seemed like a pretty difficult race out there for you today. Ben getting the best of you with an undercut. What was strategy like there around the Silverstone circuit?
Yeah, it was I'd say it was a good race. Didn't have the pace of Cam. Never was going to have the pace of Cam. But yeah, I'd done practice and I was confident with the medium soft. Was hoping maybe for a safety car that would let me extend the mediums a little bit longer, but I just pushed them one lap too long and lost, I think, 2.5 seconds on my in lap to Ben, which cost me in the end.
You fend off from, I think you started in P2 behind Joe, and then afterwards you managed to take the lead over in lap 2. I must say your defending was really great from the early stages, having to fend off from 4 or 5 drivers that all had the DRS compared to you. How did you manage to do it?
Well, in the first 2 or 3 laps I had the tyre advantage. It's not massive, but it was enough that I just got better traction out of Chapel, really. But we were also all being very strategic. So once my tyres started to go off a little bit more, there were a few times where Joe and Cam Joe could have passed and kind of backed off a little bit so that we didn't go too wide into Stowe, which is never a good idea. And then Cam got me, and the rest is history, they say.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the best performances we've seen from Cameron. In terms of the title fight, it does put a slight dent in it. This sort of, after the races you've had, this is almost sort of a I think you've used your drop round. I think you used it around Canada. I can't remember now. Brain's gone blank. But in terms of the rest of the season, how are you sort of looking for the rest of the tracks as we continue on?
Yes, Canada was my drop round. So I think Cam's first, because of his drop round. I'm then first, third, and I think Ben's second. So we're all really close. There's probably like 2 or 3 points separating me and Ben, and then Cam will be 15 points ahead or something. But that can all change with the DNF. Texas, I hate with a passion. I am shocking at it. So if I can get on the podium, then that'll be a great result. Whereas then Las Vegas, Austria, Spa, and Singapore, I like his tracks. They suit my driving style a lot better than like the flowy nature of Silverstone and Kota. So I think I can battle for P2. P1's only on really if Cam puts it in a wall, which he usually makes 2 mistakes a season. So there is a chance, but it's on him to make a mistake, really.
I mean, we do have the Singapore track, which does have a lot of walls, so we'll have to see what happens around there. But I'll be honest, you're not alone in hating Kota. I do have a good friend who absolutely despises it as well, so it seems that it has drawn the ire. Josh, congratulations on P3. Good luck for the rest of the season. And yeah, good stuff today.
Cheers.
So now moving on to our second place finisher, Ben, in the Williams. And it has to be said, Ben, after last week in Canada, I believe you said Silverstone was one of the tracks you were excited for. I have to say you've delivered after both qualifying and the race. It just seemed like you pitted a little bit too early. What was the strategy going in terms of the tyres? The undercut was quite good for you?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that Cameron had gapped Josh in front of me, and the DRS, and I was just going to be losing more and more time to him. So I thought if I go for a pretty crazy undercut onto the mediums, I could maybe gain some time and get back in front. Which it did happen, but Cam's tyre delta by the time he had pit was too big for me to stay with him. And then with Josh, I just about had enough to keep him behind at the end, but it was all about making sure the tyres were fine, and trying not to let him into my DRS window.
It's your second race so far in the BUSR, and so far you've got yourself onto a podium streak. Having been saying that Silverstone was one of your favorite tracks, I'm sure you've all showed it. Do you think you'll be able to keep your podium streak heading through to the next race over in Austria? Oh, sorry,
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I hope so. That'll be my aim, to just keep consistent results and try and be in the fight for the wins and podiums. So. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Kota, so hopefully I can get up to pace and maybe challenge Cameron for the win.
Well, I have to see about that. In terms of the championship, we saw it go down the wire last split from Joe, who was extremely consistent. Cameron had a few moments going around the tracks. I think consistency is a fantastic thing to have during the entire season. So, Kota, you're feeling confident on. I can't remember the ones that you talked about last week. But just in terms of today, you had a strategy that worked, just a little bit too much of a tie delta. Were you expecting any sort of safety cars, rain, anything more interesting today? Or did you sort of look at the weather and go, well, this is going to be a tricky situation to be in?
Yeah, I mean, with the weather being dry, wasn't going to complain because I hadn't done any preparation for wet running. So yeah, so that was a relief. But then also with the what was it you mentioned at first? Sorry,
just the strategies and the rest of the season. Possible safety cars around the circuit.
Yeah, safety cars. That's it. Safety cars. That's it. Yeah. After last week with I think there was 3 or 4, maybe more. I was expecting maybe 1 or 2 at Silverstone. I know it's a wider track and the walls aren't as close, but it was nice to have a safety car free race, and that's when strategy can actually play a part, which I'm glad it did today.
Allowing to get into the flow state a little bit more more fluid of a race, and hopefully you get that around Austin next week as well. Congratulations, Ben. P2. I have to say it was a hard fought P2, but you managed to keep it in the end.
Thank you.
Now a little bit of deja vu. Cameron, last week, winner around Montreal in the Canadian Grand Prix, and he's done it again around Silverstone. He should be joining us in a moment. Cameron, well, we're talking to you again after another, well, let's be honest, a not so chaotic race, but it did involve a lot of strategy. I've asked both the other drivers about sort of strategy and how they sort of looked at the race. You started in P5. What was your sort of initial feelings starting off in that position?
I mean, the qualifying was obviously I'm having fun this season, as I'm sure you've seen by the first runs in quali at the moment. But yeah, I was just delayed getting out. Impromptu weight reduction. I'll leave it at that.
Ale was actually talking about it at the start, to be fair. So
yeah, so I was late out, and then the strap was just never working for qualifying. So I was, it's Silverstone, it's a DRS train, and then the race. I think there was just people sort of it split up, and then we just all ran our different strategies. And I think I just timed it right.
Having this been your second win this season, but you started yourself down in P5, at one point down to P6, and you managed to get the lead by lap 1. And also the fact that you've managed to pull 3 seconds within a lap to Ben after doing the overcut, which wasn't optimal. Would you consider this to be arguably your best race, Cameron?
I think cleanest race in a while. Yeah, as I said, quali wasn't quite what I wanted. Certainly gone quicker in practice, but yeah, the race was textbook. It was nice we didn't have a safety car for once. So.
Still plenty of penalties, but no one crashing into a wall.
Yeah, exactly.
You kept that to qualifying. Cameron, I think you've had plenty of time to sort of look at the rest of the contenders for your championship at the moment. You're leading the way with those 2 wins that you've had. Looking at around you, who do you see as the biggest threat after these 3 races?
I think it's still fairly close, both between Josh and Ben. They're both about the same speed. And I think it would come down race by race, who's stronger, who's got the better strategy. But at the moment, as I said last week, they're taking points off each other, which is just helping me. So.
You're going into the next race over in Austin.
Sorry, I was looking at AO and he's just having a moment. I was just like, oh, is it my turn?
He was ready for a question.
Go for it, AO. Sorry.
Heading over to the next race over in Austin, it's going to be midway for the season. This is actually going to be the first time in the Spring Championship that you're actually leading. So what's the mindset now different? Because you usually come into these races as a chaser, and now this time you're coming in as, dare I say, a targeted man heading into the United States. So what's your philosophy heading to there?
I mean, last time I was at Austin, I was crashed into on lap 1, crashed into on lap 2. And then fairly fair and square beaten on pace. So I'm just genuinely hoping that doesn't happen again. Yeah, it can't go any worse than last time. So,
well, you made your redemptions here after your retirement 10 months ago. So all I hope they'll be the same.
Oh, don't remind me of that.
Heading into Austin.
Oh dear, yeah, much better race this time. Thank you.
Well done on the win, Cameron. Hope you enjoy it.
Congratulations, mate. Oh, there we go. The British Grand Prix in the books. I mean, a lot less chaos. And I've got to say, fantastic racing from a lot of the drivers. Ender Epic and Joe probably having the fight of the season just in those last 2 laps. Joe lining up the move and then just about making it stick going into club after going through Vale. So I think up and down, we had each one of the races individually had some fantastic drives underneath them. I think Ben making a fantastic choice in terms of strategy that, like you said, I think was just a little bit too early, waiting for a safety car maybe to help him out. Josh also having a great performance down in P3 as well. Maybe not quite the performance he would have liked after starting P2 in qualifying. But Cameron, like we said, it's probably the best race we've seen from him so far, best race driven, and it deservedly got the win today around the British Grand Prix.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, this is going to be something that's going to be talked about in his BUSR career for, years to come, for how clean of a race this was. And when everything was laid out and there was no safety car and everyone was equal, he was down in 5th, near 6th. The fact that he recovered so much is honestly just, really a testament to show why he's a true championship, leader. And, always has set the benchmark for BUSR, but he really did showcase his talents here. I will point out, though, that I'll give another fair mention to someone that started 15th and eventually went his way up into 1st place, Chaotic, who I'm surprised Cameron did not mention as a title contender.
Our driver of the day, Chaotic. Well done to everyone. That is it for the Silverstone and the British Grand Prix in round 3 of the BUSR Spring 2025 Championship. That's it from me, RW Dragon and AO. And next week, we'll be going around Austin, back over to North America and around the States for our first United States race of the year. We'll see you for that next week.
in history where I could stand and say, arithmetic begins here, now. Flame or road.